I was at a holiday party, and I think I was speaking to Dr. Walker, the mathematician, and I asked her, where'd you go to school? Because I was trying to find some inspiration for my own kids. And she's like, oh, I went to Harvard. And I'm like, what? And then I think you piped up and said, oh, you went to Harvard? I went to Harvard too. And I'm wondering why I'm in this room of these accomplished women, and I felt like I was in a room of unicorns. I'm like, you ladies exist. Why don't we know about you? So that's why we kind of gathered you here today. We know the journeys were rewarding through the high level of success you've achieved, but at the time that you were going through these venerable institutions, did you see a lot of people that looked like you?
No, I'm laughing because my undergraduate in science, I'd sit in these classrooms with 500, 600 students. Everybody knew me because I was the only Black person in that room.
Wow.
And that was pretty much the way it was until I got to my PhD.
Mine was completely different, so I'm fortunate for that. Yeah. I was in my home territory, so in Trinidad, and doing a science degree, and was surrounded by people who looked like me. I would say it changed when I went to Harvard.
Yes.
Because, like Charmaine, everybody knew me and I knew none of them.
I think when I got to the UK was the first time I realized that it was a bit of an irregular situation. I was one of two in the whole program, but Catherine kind of lent into it a little bit when we say we came from a very sort of place where people look like us, so I didn't think I couldn't do it. But I think what I learned for the first time is people didn't expect me to do it.
That's true.
That was the first time I realized I was being read in a way that I wasn't used to being read.
And then you said you didn't realize you were Black until you came to Canada.
Yep.
What does that mean?
The students who are senior than me were saying, Jockey, it's rough. I said, no, it cannot be. Because I had graduated at the top of my school from the University of Nairobi. It cannot be. I had honors. And then when I go to class, I say something, they say, and they move like this.
So you learned you had an accent now, right?
Yes, because of my African accent. And then slowly people will say, you're black. I say, no, I'm not. I'm not Black. I'm African. I'm Kenyan. And the other classmates of mine who knew we were all Black, saying, Jockey, stop, you're Black. You're Black. I said, okay, I'm Black.
And you hear these stories and you think about what that does to your psyche, right? The pressures of university life, already well known. Mm-hmm. Add to that the pressure of, as Jokie's talking about, looking and questioning yourself if you belong in these spaces. They need the inspiration for seeing you guys in these positions, but do you think it also provides some kind of comfort to know when you're going through this and you see this Black professor who's achieved? Is that part of the importance of having you in these roles?
I certainly think representation matters. I think that it's important not only for Black students, but for other students who don't see people like them in this space to see us representing that possibility. I also think that they try to sell students this idea that they're dealing with something called imposter syndrome, as if they have some kind of psychological problem when they get to these spaces. And I've never liked imposter syndrome. I tell people it gets no real estate in my brain because imposter syndrome is really us running up against systems that don't expect to see us, don't think we belong here, don't seem to find us comprehensible. That's what that is. That's a system problem. That's not a you problem. So I'm not going to create a workshop for you to talk about your imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about this institution and how you navigate this institution and how we get into places where we can change this institution, which is why you want women like us in dean positions and other kinds of people who aren't represented here in these kinds of positions.
Often we've heard that people like us can't achieve the levels that we have because education is so expensive and it's so unattainable.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Well, it isn't. There are scholarships. And if you do well and you apply, there's a likelihood you will get one.
Did both of you get scholarships?
Yeah, I studied a scholarship at Harvard.
Everybody? At some point? I don't think you did. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is attainable. And one of my happiest days since joining School of Continuing Studies was the news of a Trinidadian like me. Like me.
Yeah.
We say Trini to the bone. But anyways, like me, as president of a college, we see each other and we want others to see us. But we need to continue to see each other as we move on as well.
As she was mentioning, Rhonda, you're the first black woman to lead a Canadian university, first president in Victoria's 188-year history to come from the sciences rather than the humanities. How do you create that sense of belonging when they get here? Because it is intimidating, right?
It's really important to understand that grounding and what we had coming in here. Right? We didn't come from positions where we felt weak. I think in every one of our origin stories, there was somewhere along the line, there was some people built into us a belief that we could attain it and we could get it. And I think I certainly have always believed that I belong in these spaces. And if we recognize that we have what it takes, then within any system, we can rise to that level of elite performance, and we do. The other thing I'll say is, to be the first black woman president, I have to highlight the fact that there are other black women who were deserving of this before me, and there will be more after me. The boards have to, when they take a decision, that the right person for the job is this person who doesn't look like all the other people on the walls, then they have to remember that they stand by that person too when it gets tough, because it always gets tough.
I feel like though you guys have an armor around you. Because it's one thing to have one degree. It seems like you all have so many degrees that you want to make sure that resume was that they couldn't question anything, right? Because I think all 4 of you have like 4 degrees.
True.
It's incredible.
It's true, and it's not an atypical story, right? Women in technology, women who were in areas to science, we worked harder to prove it. When I was in engineering, doing my master's in engineering, I know I worked harder. People were going out to party. I was in the lab. I was with that spectrometer. I was going to make sure. We are armored by our resumes, right? Our resumes and our CVs protect us from the kinds of attacks that come.
It's Black History Month. We're going to be playing this for not only women of color, but just for all of Toronto. What's your advice to young people and young people of color looking at academia, dreaming about using this to change their lives? I got a 17-year-old at home I'm trying to inspire, right?
I'll share a piece of advice that I got early in my career and so on, and it was learn the system. Wherever you go, learn that system.
Like how to navigate?
We have come from different countries, we have different cultures, we have different understandings of the world. But when you go somewhere else, you have to take some time. You don't lose your culture, but you have to understand where you are. Because if you don't understand where you are, then you can't play the game. And we must be bold enough to say, we are in the game.
What I remember telling my children is, listen, if you let racism put you down, you always be down. Don't waste so much time and energy worrying about racism. What you need to focus on is that you're grounded in your cultural identity, you're grounded in your goals, you're grounded in your vision.
I'd also say try everything. Find out what you love. Find out what you don't like. Really get to know yourself and your talents and what you care about and what you love. Because when other people give you advice, sometimes they're going to give you advice that is based on their low expectations of what you can do and who you are. You need to know yourself, and you need to do what you know you can do.
Your stories are inspiring, your lives that you've lived, really inspiring, and we really appreciate you sharing because we know how busy you are with these big jobs that you were able to make some time for us today. Thank you all for sharing.